Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series for Halloween 21, which is obviously called Halloween Horror 2021. And today we're taking a look at the House of the Dead 3 on the Nintendo Wii. I figured, one, I should do a little bit more lighthearted horror content for Halloween, and two, I've done videos on the House of the Dead, the House of the Dead 2, the House of the Dead 4, and the House of the Dead Overkill, so I figured we should probably include 3 here as well. Before we get too far involved, though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down there as well. But I will say off the bat, House of the Dead 3 is my least favorite game in the entire House of the Dead series. And that is not to say that I don't like it. I really do enjoy this game and I think it's great. It's just, to me, the weakest entry in an amazing series. But being in last place in an amazing race still makes you a great game. And like I said, we've done 2 horror games already, one straight horror, another one kind of more suspenseful horror, and this game, it is of course having horror elements involved in it, but is your classic light gun arcade shooter. And if you've been watching the channel at all, you know I love arcade games, you know I love light gun shooters, so House of the Dead 3 is the perfect fit for this series, because it is an incredible game, and Sega always did an amazing job of making arcade games, and they still do. If you played Scarlet Dawn, you'll know that Sega still has the skills when it comes to House of the Dead light gun games. The reason that I really do like House of the Dead 3 is it's just more of the same great arcade action that Sega always gives to us. The shooting's great, the enemy designs are incredible, you get all these different branching paths that gives the game as much replayability as an arcade game ever could possibly have. Why don't I think it's the best game in the series? I think it's all down to environment and tone. I love the Kuranghi Mansion from the original game, that kind of gothic horror. Obviously, that's something I really do enjoy, because if you think about the video Amnesia Machine for Pigs, I talk so much about how I love the mansion that game starts in. House of the Dead 2 was a really fun trip through a European town, and I really did enjoy that as well. House of the Dead 3 goes into more of a corporate office building environment and really leans heavily into the science aspect of the series. And I think it does a really good job with that. But this is also that generation of games where the color brown is basically the entire color palette that a developer would use, and I just think that's a really big bummer, because the original House of the Dead was so colorful and so vibrant that I really miss that in House of the Dead 3. But like I said, these aren't really complaints about the game, they're just reasons why we consider this to be the weakest entry in this series, but it's still an absolute blast to play. And if you pick it up on the Wii, you can get the House of the Dead 2 and 3 return, and you get 2 games on the same disc, and you really can't complain about that. I looked at eBay and it is still quite cheap for a copy of that game. And you have to absolutely love the Nintendo Wii, because this was the console that kept the light gun dream alive at home. After a lot of people stopped owning CRT televisions and light gun technology wouldn't work with LCDs, the Wiimote allowed us to play these games from our couch and really still enjoy what they were, and that was a great thing if you were an arcade fan. But again, the House of the Dead is just an awesome franchise. You can pick any game in the series as an entry point, and you're going to have a ton of fun. And obviously this game comes alive with more than one player. You do get story elements as much as you'll ever get in an arcade game, and they're hokey, and the voice acting is clearly not great, but that is part and parcel of the House of the Dead experience. The voice acting is never great, and it continues to be bad even in Scarlet Dawn, and that game was made in an era where they could have gotten good voice acting, so it's kind of a really cheesy horror trope to just have the voice acting be terrible. But I will say, with the Wiimote, the light gun shooting action feels really good. Of course you have a crosshair because it's not a traditional light gun, but it feels almost as good as playing with the old light gun technology. Now, motion controls, IR sensors are never going to perfectly replicate that experience, but you get really close. And considering the only other way to play this game at home is with an original Xbox and an Xbox light gun, this is a more convenient way to play it. Now, I do have an original Xbox with a light gun for this game, and I do play it on my PVM from time to time, but as far as captures are concerned and what I expect people will do if they want to play this game after watching it, the Wii is going to be the version you want to play. What I want to let you do is listen to a little bit of the music, because Sega's always done a great job of giving you really lively and awesome soundtracks for these games. So enjoy for like 35-45 seconds, and I'll come back and tell you more about why, even if this isn't my favorite House of the Dead game, it's still an awesome game you should check out. Be right back.
this place? Some sort of feeding ground? We're trapped. It's coming, Lisa. Get ready.
Obviously, the gunshot sound effect is going to overwhelm a little bit of the soundtrack, but Sega's always done a great job of giving really interesting music for the House of the Dead series, and of course they're also great at making really fun boss encounters, and we're fighting a giant sloth right now, and of course like all the bosses in the House of the Dead, he's based on a tarot card, which is a really fun and unique way kind of to introduce different bosses. But I think that this game actually has some of the best boss encounters in a House of the Dead game, and that's why, like I said, even if this is my least favorite, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I think it's a great game. I just wish it was a little bit more gothic horror and a little less straight sci-fi industrial horror. But you'll see here, you do get to go outside now and again, but the entirety of the game is going to basically be taking place in this tower as we traverse through it. But I love the zombie designs. We got a lot of fresh designs in this game after coming from 1 and 2, and it's really fun to see all the diversity in the zombies. It's as much fun as Scarlet Dawn is or House of the Dead 4 is. I think they kind of copy and pasted the zombie designs a few too many times in those games, and it can start feeling repetitive. And if you ever wondered what happened to the ducks from Duck Hunt, well, they did die from shotgun shells, and they came back as zombie buzzards for the House of the Dead 3. But as we move on into the game, this has incredible pacing. I really like the pacing of the third game in the series. It gives you just enough time to breathe before a boss comes back again. And this security guard has been chasing us through the entire game so far, and I like that this boss keeps weaving himself through the different levels, popping up, fighting you, receding into the background, and then coming back again for the penultimate fight against you. It's a really nice design choice when the developers do something like that. It kind of just makes the entire game feel like one cohesive level, even if there are loading zones between each individual area. But I also like how the monsters just pop out. You have walls breaking. Zombies are coming from the roof. You can never be quite sure where something's going to come from or how quickly it's going to come out. The minute you think that there's going to be a little bit of a lull in the game, something like the boss again pops through this door and you're fighting him immediately. The game doesn't really give you much of a breather, but for an arcade light gun shooter, that's exactly what you want. Your breather is in between the levels when the game is loading or giving you a little tiny bit of story, but otherwise it's keeping the action on the entire time, and I've always liked that about Sega and the House of the Dead. You really don't get much, if any, chance to rest. You just have to keep playing the game. Now, I will say when you first buy this game, you only get 4 credits at the start. Maybe you'll be able to beat the game with it, maybe you won't. You have to unlock extra credits as you get more coins throughout the game and increase your score. And I do like that because obviously these games weren't meant for huge replayability. They were arcade games to start, so they want to kind of artificially inhibit you from seeing the entire game on your first playthrough. But there's so many different branching paths. You can go back and play this game time and time again. It'll probably take you 4 to 5 playthroughs to see at least all the paths, and there are multiple endings, and that'll probably take you a couple playthroughs as well. And if you're into light gun games, you really can't go wrong with any House of the Dead entry. 3 is great, 1, 2, 4, Scarlet Dawn, and Overkill I like slightly better, but trust me, if you're looking for a fun light gun game to play, you could do a lot worse than House of the Dead 3. And if you have a second player, this game gets even more fun. My wife and I played through this. We played through Overkill together and Scarlet Dawn, and we always have a great time playing each and every one of them. But I wanted to give you guys just a little something lighter for the Halloween series, but next Tuesday we're going to have a really weird, really strange, and really unsettling game coming up. But short of that, we'll have videos throughout the week as well on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. If you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them down below. Love chatting with you guys. I'd love to know what your favorite light gun game is or what your favorite entry in the House of the Dead series is, because there's so many games. At the point that this comes out, hopefully we've got the remake of the original House of the Dead on Switch. We'll see what happens. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm going to keep fighting this plant monster, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.